So I already have a Revit project file open and I've loaded the MyCAD door families. Let's take a quick look at each of the family types. So let me zoom in here in the 3D view and I'll zoom in here over the plan and let me select this door. So this first door family is a single hinged, FG being the door elevation type. You can see that here in the 3D view, full glass. The nomenclature comes from the Steel Door Institute for door elevation type names. So that's a single hinged, full glass 36 by 84. The next door beside that is a single hinged with a side light, and the one after that has both a side light and a transom. Continuing on, the next door is a pivot door. So if your door is using pivots instead of hinges, we then have a bifold door. Flip that over to the other side here so you can see it a little better. Okay, we have a bifold door. We then have a double acting door and a communicating door like you might find between two hotel rooms. A pocket door and a wall slider. So that's all the single doors. Let's look at the double doors. I'll zoom in here in the plan. Zoom in here in 3D. So a typical double hinge door, flush 60 by 80. A double egress door. A double unequal door, 24-inch leaf. Double pivot door. And over here in 3D again. Double bifold door. Double acting. Double pocket, sliding, double sliding, and a double wall slider. Then we have curtain wall doors. I'll zoom over here in 3D. So a typical single hinge door that works within a curtain wall, a pivot door, a double acting door, double pivot door, double bifold door, and double acting door. Still a couple more. We've got a double slider and double unequal opening. So those are all the families that we have, door families that we have available. Now each of the door families has the option to change the door elevation, as you saw right here when we got started. We also built a number of door panel families. So let me maximize this and we'll take a closer look. So again, these were the nomenclature was based on the Steel Door Institute. So we have a flush door. This one was a flush with hardware. Then we have full glass, and we have G for half glass, a couple different louver options, a narrow panel, a vision panel. Then we have a bunch of panel types doors, a single panel, P1, P2 is a 2 panel, 3 panel, 4 panel, and a 6 panel. A couple doors for storefronts, one with a middle rail and one without, and then an all-glass door panel and an all-glass door panel with rails. So again, all of these different panel types can be used inside of any of these doors, giving you a ton of different combinations. And also each of these panels has their own parameters that can be adjusted. We can also create new additional panels and insert them anytime into any of the doors over here. So now let's take a look at the door parameters. I'm going to open up a plan view again and tile my screen so I can see plan and 3D at the same time. And I'm going to click on this first door here and we're going to look at the parameters. So as you know, there's two collections of parameters. When I click on the object, there are some instance parameters, and something that we built into all our doors is the ability to change these swings. So this door has the option to change from a 90 degree to a 45 to 135 and over to 180 degrees. And again, those can be customized. We can create our own custom versions, but we did build a few default standard ones for you to use into each one. Now, depending on the door, there may be some slightly different options. If you click on the pivot door, it's worded a little bit differently. It says pivot 90, pivot 45, but same idea. Bifold doors, click on those. And it says bifold 45, 60, 90, giving you a few different options for the graphics. So in terms of instance parameters, that's really the only additional one that we created that allows you to control the graphics. The doors do have a ton of type parameters, so let's take a look at the type parameters that are common to all the different families. So again, I'll start with my single hinge door, and when you click the Edit Type button, it brings up your Type Properties dialog box. I'll move it right there so we can see the whole thing. So let's start talking about the frames. So first off, our door library has the option to display frames. There's a checkbox right here called Has Frame. If I uncheck it and click Apply, you'll see the frame disappear. Not only in plan, it disappeared over in 3D. So there's the option to turn the frame on or off. So I'll turn that back on. When the frame is on, there is also an option for the frame to match the width of the wall or for it to be a fixed dimension. If I unclick this, the fixed frame parameter, and hit apply, the frame will now match the width of the wall. If I want a specific depth, I'll click that checkbox on, and now it uses the depth that's on the line below. So when I hit apply, you'll see that I have a 5-inch frame. And if you want to move the door back into the thickness of the wall, we have a parameter here called door inset. So when I apply that, you can see that the door moved into the thickness of the wall. Not only do we have the option to move it around, we also have a couple other frame dimensions further down on the list. There's a dimension for top frame thickness and side frame thickness. So if you had a masonry wall, sometimes you have to make that frame a little bit thicker. So I will apply that, and you'll see over here in the 3D view. Let me just click OK and hit escape. You can see in here that the frame size has adjusted. So I'll edit type, top frame thickness versus side frame thickness. Let me make this a lot larger so you can easily tell that there's a much larger frame there. All right, so we built custom parameters for all of the frames, and it should give you the flexibility that you need for your office. Of course, we have some standard parameters for the door height, the door width, and the door thickness. So if you needed a different size in your library, say I wanted a 30-inch full glass, 30-inch wide door, same process is used for everything else. You make a duplicate, and then you change the parameters accordingly. So if this is going to be a 30-inch door, I'll change the width to 2.6, and I'll click apply, and now I have both of those options available in my library. Now, one other thing to mention about the frames, if you do choose to turn off the frame by unclicking that checkbox there, if you were to look at the door from an elevation view, so let me just quickly create an elevation view. If you look at the door from the elevation view, you don't see any frame around there. Obviously, we just turned it off, but you might want an extra graphic around there. So we created a parameter called casing. So if you go back into the type parameters, there is a checkbox here called show casing in 3D. And that also works in conjunction with this casing width parameter. So if I apply that change, you'll see that the casing is shown around the perimeter of the door. Of course, we also have material parameters for rendering for both the frame, the casing, and the panel has its own parameter for materials as well. A couple other specialty options that we've built in is the ability to control the graphics for the swing a little bit more. So let me go back to a plan view here. Let me cancel out of that screen and go back into a plan view. Some offices we work with like to have a straight swing line displayed if it's an existing door, so that option is built in. Edit type, straight swing. We'll hit apply and you can see that. We also have the option here for a single line in the plan view, so if you want a simpler graphic, we have that option available. So I think we've covered all of the default parameters that are available for each and every door type. There are some parameters we'll get into a little bit later when we talk about scheduling. So let's move into some of the family specific parameters. So some families have different parameters that are not available to all the others. For example, let's go to this door with a side light. As you would expect when you go to the type parameters list, there are a couple additional parameters that weren't available. Here is the side light rail thickness and the side light rail height and the side light frame base. So this allows you to control the dimensions of the side light for that door. The same idea is true for the door with the side light and transom. You go to the type parameters and there's additional parameters in there to allow you to control those. So every different door type has some different options. The pivot door has, let me find, where's that pivot door? Right there. The pivot door has a parameter to allow you to control the pivot offset distance, so you can control that graphic. The bifold door, I don't know if that has any extra parameters. Let's take a quick look. It doesn't look like the bifold one has any special parameters. So you'll get the idea anyways. Each different door type has some special parameters that are tailored just to that particular door, and I think you'll find that they all have the flexibility that they need so that you can control the graphics the way you want. And not only do the doors have parameters, so do all these custom panels. So let me zoom in and take a look at this panel, for example. So this panel type is called the FG for full glass. When I go to the type parameter dialog box, you can see there's a parameter for top rail, style, and bottom rail. So let me change these values change each of those to 6 and hit apply, and you'll see the updates on that screen. Now if you needed both sizes available in your project, all you have to do is make a duplicate. So maybe I'll call this FG 4-inch, and then I'll click on the list here, click on the parameters, and change that back to the value I want. So these door panels, and including the newly created one, can be used within any of the door types over here. So just to prove that point, let me go into this door right here. I'll click on Edit Type, and here, the door panel type where it says Generic Model, this is where you find a list of all those types that we had just created. So let me stretch this over. So you'll click on here. It's not playing nice. There we go. So I'll click on there. There's the FG P2, and the new ones that I just created, there's the FG 4-inch. So I'll hit apply, and obviously you should go back and rename the type accordingly if this is now full glass instead of flush. And you click OK, and you can see that particular door is updated. So again, the system gives you a ton of flexibility because you can use any of these panels within any of the doors. Now, these panels were built as what's called generic models. You saw that when you were in the previous screen of parameters, so that the panels didn't show up on the door schedules. So let's talk about door schedules. So in addition to all the doors in the library, we've also built a door schedule for you. The door families are listed in the schedule, as well as the panel types. One of the biggest challenges most people had with schedules is the scheduling of double doors. For most people, a schedule of double doors lists the overall width as the width of an opening, and everybody preferred to list the individual panels. So we've got you covered. Over here, we can list each of the individual panels. These were the nested panels that we embedded into the door. So if the door is a double door and there are two different panel types, you can have one column for each. So this one is called type, and this is called panel 2 type. You call it leaf type. You can obviously change these heading names to whatever you want. And if the door was an unequal size, you can also report the dimension of the second panel. So we've got you covered in terms of schedules, and that's included with the library.